Welcome in to another edition of the Cavalier Connection. I'm Jeff, joined by Jay. How you doing tonight, Jay?
Yeah, I'm doing great. That picture gets me every time.
We're
The
and listen.
music is great. I
Hopefully,
love the music, but good lord, that picture.
that picture is funny. It's terrible. Hopefully when the football season gets started, we get some shots from off the field that we can use and replace
Yeah,
those
yeah.
pictures with.
Maybe us
Um,
charging the field, maybe at the goalposts, Friday nights, Florida
yeah,
State game. I mean, you never know.
it could remind you of like 1995. I don't know. Something probably happened in '95. I don't know. But yeah, welcome in tonight. We've got a exciting guest, more inside information from the UVA football program, Jacquie Franculli of 24/7 Sports, and so excited to talk to her. Before we get to that, we got to talk about our friends over at Menser's for sure, folks. And I know Mason, my son's not too thrilled about this. I'm sure Jayton. I don't know if Jayton's excited or not.
Absolutely,
However, what's that?
absolutely not.
Well, I got bad news and good news for them. It is back to school season. Um, and before the kids pack their lunch boxes and sharpen their pencils, they do need to pack some gear from Menser's. They've got all the UVA gear they need to start the school year strong. T-shirts that make recess more spirited, hoodies perfect for cool bus stop mornings, backpacks, hats, accessories that show their Wahoo pride from the classroom to the playground. Make the first touchdown of the season a shopping trip to Menser's. You can hit them August the 30th. You could go there first thing in the morning before the football game against Coastal Carolina. Hit up Menser's and get some cool gear for your kids as they start off on the school year. I guess Jayton's going to be starting a little before then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing pictures on Facebook of people around the state have already started in some
Yeah.
locations. Jayden's first day is coming up this Monday, so
Oh,
he's living his best life this last
oh,
week of
yeah.
summer and soaking it all in best he can.
Well, if you
Uh,
can't make it to Menser's before the Coastal game, you can also go to Mensers.com and make an order too. Today
Absolutely.
is what,
And if you
Tuesday?
do that, Jeff, if you do that, you need to go to the cavalierconnection.com and click on the link for Mincers. That helps us tremendously.
Yes.
And if you want to help the show, go to the cavalierconnection.com, click on the link Mincers, and buy something. You're going to buy
Yeah.
it anyway. So
Yeah.
just go
If you're
ahead
going
and
to
buy it
buy it
on our link.
if you're buying it anyway, just go to cavalierconnection.com and go right through that route. And we'll thank you. Menser's thanks you. And UVA thanks you because you're supporting the university too by wearing their gear. All right. You know her as the go to source for breaking news, in depth analysis, and recruiting insight at Wahoos 24/7. We're excited to be joined today by one of the most plugged in voices in UVA athletics, Jacquie Franculli. She can help us break down, hopefully, the latest on fall camp, get some inside scoop on the roster, and maybe share what we may can expect in the 2025 season. Jacquie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great,
Doing
thanks.
great.
Doing great. So just jumping kind of right into it. Fans, I think, are most worried right now. Kam Robinson. Do you have the latest on his situation? And I know the rumors are swirling he may be injured.
Yeah, so we reported on Wahoos 24/7 today that he missed the last two practices due to an injury. So Virginia has not released an official statement yet. Tony Elliott's only available to the media on Monday. So we're going to have to wait for them to release it. But he is dealing with an injury that could see him out for a few weeks. So we're just waiting for official word there. It's nothing that we expect like a McKeelan Thomas, who is a more long-term injury that probably sees him probably to October, November, depending on how long he can come back from that fracture in his foot. It's nothing like Monroe Mills or Jam Jackson or Dre Walker. We're not dealing with a torn ACL here. So it's not as serious as it could be, but obviously it's something to monitor with the season coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad it's nothing season ending, but
Yeah.
we hope he'll be back soon for sure. So kind of big picture from your perspective, what's the single biggest storyline heading into the 2025 season?
I mean, the biggest thing is that the staff this offseason said, hey, let's go find competitive depth, right? To build up this team that has veterans, that has experience, playable depth, because ever since Tony Elliott's been in Charlottesville. There's obviously been a drop off from the first team to the second, to the second, to the third. And we've seen that in several of his teams where they had to rely with first year players. And that's not something you want to rely on constantly. Yes, you'll have first year players that show out and earn some playing times. Like this year, maybe Josiah Abdullah or Josiah Persinger will probably be the two guys that might earn some playing times early, or Corey Cosner. But they're not earning playing time because number one and number two are hurt. They're earning playing time because of their talent. So that's the difference this year, right? You have different options. I know people are freaking out about, the injuries on the O-line. Monroe Mills got hurt in the spring, and then the guy who's replacing that guy got hurt in training camp and a non-contact injury. But now they have still a battle at right tackle. So between Wallace Unamba and Ben York, which is a guy they recruited and brought into the team as a high schooler, and now he's in his second year, and then possibly Jack Whitmer, who's been floating from right and left since he moved over from tight end, although in the last practice, he was even playing right guard. So you have options there now. This is not like you had zero other options, or you were going on probably a guy who came in as a walk-on. You're dealing with guys who they recruited and are good, talented players and actually have experience. So you're at least going that route when you have injuries. And I think that's the biggest storyline for Virginia. And also on offense, you have a guy who there's not really a quarterback controversy. I mean, that's the first time in a while that I can say there's no quarterback controversy. You're just going. Chandler Morris was named the guy. He is the guy. Daniel Kaelin's using this opportunity to grow and learn the offense. He came in knowing that was a big possibility, understood what his role was. So there's not this animosity towards that. I know that's something that's big in the transfer portal world of college football. So, I mean, things are I would say things are hopeful. It's just, you just want to see how the games shake out, because Virginia's not the only team that has all these new faces, right? So you don't really know what's going on in the ACC. Anyone who tells you that they know what the ACC is going to look like is lying to you, because honestly, apart from maybe Clemson at number one, maybe Miami in 2 or 3, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen with the other teams.
Yeah. And, the coaching staff, I keep hearing the word consistency, being consistent. Have you seen anything in practice early that you think they're getting closer to achieving that consistency?
Well, we don't get to see a lot of practice. So we only get to see about 20 minutes of practice. So that was stretches and individual drills. So during the times that we were on practice, I mean, you can see some guys who are a little bit more consistent, sure. But I can't, I've heard from coaches that some guys have been more consistent lately than others. Like Kam Ross has been one guy that have received a lot of praise from several coaches, including Adam Mims. And I think recently Keith Gaither told us on Monday during his press conference, he's probably one of the best players on offense. He's a guy that's been consistent this spring. Dakota Tweedy has been consistently getting better at the tight end position, something that, he had to learn from last year. You got guys that are Brady Wilson has been a consistent force at center, a guy who's played well there. So you have these guys who have consistent performing. Jamari Taylor is another one who Keith Gaither said as well, that's probably one of the best ACC running backs. So you have certainly positions that guys, and you got other guys that need to be more consistent. I mean, they've asked Darren Harrison to be more consistent. They've asked Cam Courtney to be more consistent. And even when I'm watching the wide receivers doing individual drills, you're still seeing some missteps there. And a couple of times, I mean, there are times where I've seen drops from those guys. So you're still looking for that consistency there. But you are seeing some better things out there. I mean, the physicality of it, I mean, just the guys are just bigger. And they look like an ACC D-line and O-line now. I mean, when you have guys over 300 pounds on your D-line, I think they had the most 300-pounders I've ever seen in a Virginia uniform in one line. So that's all that's kind of been standing out. And I think for them, it's just the details. I think when you listen to them post-practice, you keep hearing Tony Elliott say, this team only won, I think he said 11 games in 3 years. Come on, guys. We need to win more games. And it's us beating ourselves. These little things that you do wrong at practice, these little details, those are what matter. And I think you can see that sense of urgency there for them to find that consistency and get those details cleaned up.
Yeah, I was listening. I can't remember who it was. I want to give them credit, but I can't remember. But they were talking about they couldn't see, but they could hear Tony Elliott kind of chewing on the team at the tail end of practice. Were you there for that?
Yeah.
And did you hear any of that? And how colorful was it?
It was very colorful. I mean, usually the media kind of gathers right in front. We can't go in, so we've got over the fenced yard until we're allowed to go in. And I mean, I was walking from my car in one of the JPJ lots, and I was hearing the whistles being blown, and then you can hear Tony Elliott talking to them as I'm walking to the front. And I mean, he was kind of like hitting it hard. I mean, he was saying like, the way you perform is how you perform on game day. And this is not a team that can take days off. I mean, this is a team this is a program that hasn't won much in the last few years. So you kind of have to consistently perform even at practice, because if you can't perform at practice, you're not going to perform on game day. Not something that he was, the players got that message loud and clear. I mean, I was tired just listening to them to run. It was a lot of running, and it wasn't one of those days that it was hot. It was gratefully, I think one of the players says, I'm grateful that it was cloud cover out there. But at the same time, I mean, those guys did a lot of up downs and a lot of running after that practice. I think they got the message pretty clear.
Good.
Yeah. So I know there's been some tight position battles going on. Are there any that stand out right now most to you?
Position battles. I'm really curious about.
Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So as far as position battles, I mean, there are a few position battles. I'm just bringing up my thing so I can look at my scrimmage stuff. Yeah, I mean, the secondary is one of the biggest ones for me, just because we still don't see the unit yet, because some of the guys like Donovan Platt, Christian Charles, Emmanuel Cardinley haven't played a lot this fall camp. Donovan Platt started, but then he got hurt mid-fall camp. So they had to kind of put other guys in there, which is why you see some like Josiah Persinger and Jordan Robinson starting at quarter. Although I think Jordan Robinson is a guy that I would watch as one of the guys to possibly take that position. I think Donovan Platt is the other one that I think can possibly take that number one spot. But I mean, Emmanuel Cardinley is a really good corner from South Florida. I think you also got to look how they're going to use the nickel and the saber with Jason Brevard and Christian Charles, like Spurs and nickel position. Like, how are they going to use that? What type of packages they'll use it? So it's interesting to see how they're going to line up, because there's probably going to be different packages for one of those DBs. There's 5 DBs units, so it's going to be fun to see what they put out there. So I think that's definitely a position battle to watch, because it's still not clear, because it hasn't been all of them out there yet. I think the O-line, honestly, is pretty much set right now. I think the right tackle position and right guard are still ones that I might say, like, you can see maybe Kevin Wingington and Drake Metcalf would be the two that are fighting for that right guard position, with Ethan Sipe hurt now as well. And then at right tackle, it's Wallace Unamba and Ben York, it seems, in that position. I mean, you can possibly say Tyshawn Wyatt can flip outside if they need it, or I mean, Tyshawn Wyatt can go at right guard too. He's been working back from an injury. So once he's fully healthy, where is he going to be slotted in? So that's another position battle to watch. I think those are the keys. I mean, at running back, obviously you're going to look at Taylor and Xavier Brown, but the third battle is Noah Vaughn and Whaley. And I think Vaughn is the guy who's kind of been taking more of the reps with the third team and in the 3. So yeah, I think that's one of the interesting, like the battles you're seeing. You're seeing Landon Danley take some reps with the ones with Kam Robinson out for injury. So it's interesting to see how those battles are coming in and who's going to get more reps, because when you look at John Radzinski defense, especially on that side of the ball, they're going to rotate a lot because they want to keep those guys fresh. So even if they're in number 2 or number 3, you're going to see them take probably some reps during the season and take some snaps. But yeah, right now the secondary is probably the one that I'm keeping a closer eye on, because we still haven't seen the guys who you projected as a starter play because of injury.
Yeah, that secondary, I mean, 9 transfers that came in?
Yeah, so 9 transfers that came in. So and then obviously one of them tore his ACL, Jacquie Morris, is out, and he was probably according to Tony Elliott and even Coach Rudd, they were both saying that they were very impressed with them this fall camp. He was one of the guys that they would probably say was the one that stood out. But yeah, I mean, you got a lot of guys, and I mean, you got Keenan Johnson, who just came back from an injury, so he's finally being more active at practice. He was wearing the green bib, which means they can not do contact, but they're actually doing the individual drills now. So he's back in the picture too. So you have those guys that are now, going after and battling it out. So for sure, I mean, I think the guys that you would think are going to be your starters at safety, Devin Neal and Ethan Minter, are your kind of the two guys where I say like, okay, these are probably the two likeliest to start. And then possibly Jordan Robinson. And then that's the other corner. I don't know yet. I mean, Donovan Platt has had a lot of rave reviews. How much does him missing a few practices kind of delay his assimilation into that defense and into the system? That's a question. But I mean, I know everyone was very excited to get him. I mean, it's a very tough get to get a kid from Army to Virginia, not only just recruiting wise, but just all the stuff you have to do behind the scenes because you're coming from a service academy and the recruiting issues there. So, I mean, they wanted him, they worked hard to get him. So I think right now I would say only two real guys have really solidified their position. And maybe you can say Jason Prevard at nickel for certain packages. And then once he's healthy, Christian Charles at the other spur position. But apart from that, I would say it's a free for all.
Well, so looking at the roster as a whole, which position group has taken the biggest step forward from last season, in your opinion?
I think out of just as a depth standpoint, I think the O-line, just because you actually can see a plan what happens if the first guy goes down. I mean, last year, I remember the North Carolina game where both Brian Stevens and Ty Furnish were out. Yeah. I mean, they were trying to figure out how they're going to line up. I mean, remember at the end of the day, Brian Stevens was bought to be a right guard. And then he got the year before he moved over to center. And I remember he joked with me that he only played center in high school. So he had to get used to the center position. So, I mean, that was sort of what you were dealing with for the last 2 years, where you were kind of fitting these guys in whenever you can, rather than just getting guys that are playing their primary role. I mean, Jack Whitmore, bless him, he moved from tight end to offensive line, and then he had to go fill in for Mikhail Boley. This year, you have Wallabaugh behind Mikhail Boley. He was playing with the twos. I mean, you have other guys who's had actual experience in Power 4 schools that are now in that. I mean, the second team, the other day on Monday, they did a team breakdown drill where we looked at the first team, second team, and third team go through downs. And the second team offensive line from left to right was David Wallabaugh, Cole Serber, Noah Hartzell, Kevin Wigginton, and Ben York. So you have those guys at the twos. And when you see that, you're seeing, Ben York and Cole Serber, who's been in the program for 2 years. You see Kevin Wigginton, who has Big Ten experience. You have David Wallabaugh, who has ACC experience. So you have guys, and those are the twos. So you see a sense of a little bit of relief if someone goes down. And that's not even including like Grant Ellinger, who a lot of people in the program are really excited about at center. So he possibly could be one that could be also behind Noah Hartzell there too at center. So you have options there. I think that is probably the best thing they've done. That and D-line, honestly. O-line and D-line has probably been where the Virginia staff did its best work to reinforce the trenches. And when you even look at the defensive line, I mean, they were able to rest up Jameer Carter and say like, hey, you've got enough experience reps. Let's see Jason Hammond and Hunter Osborne take some of those reps. The first team was Fisher Kamek, Jason Hammond, Hunter Osborne, and Mitchell Melton. And then the next group had Kazim Moore and Daniel Rickert and Billy Kadelka kind of taking reps all at the end and kind of switching from bandit to the end. So they kind of played around. And that's the thing with Coach Rudd's defense, they can move around. But you see all these names there, right? And then Anthony Breton was coming in and Jacob Holmes was coming in. This was number with the twos. I mean, last year, I remember poor Terrell Jones started off inside and he went outside. Ben Smiley was the same way, started inside, go outside, go inside, just because they didn't have men right? Because they were hurt with Chico Bennett, Cam Butler hurt. They had to figure out other stuff the last 2 years. So this is where they strengthened. You have options if one guy goes hurt, because this is football. People are going to get hurt. I know that's been a huge thing with UVA fans lately. It's like, why are we always hurt? I mean, it's football. It's a contact sport. You're going to get hurt. It's just that Virginia in the past hasn't had that number 2 or number 3 guy to replace. When I cover University of Florida, number 1 guy gets hurt, the number 2 guy is just fine. Number 3 guy is a little drop off, but the number 2 guy is just fine. Yeah, there's some guys that are going to be hurt a little bit more than others, but in years past for Virginia, especially since Tony Elliott came on board and they had to have that big roster changeover, Virginia did not have that ability. If your number 1 guy was hurt, your number 2 guy was nowhere near number 1. It's just because of experience. I mean, I remember there was a game against Maryland in Maryland that they started, I don't know how, I think 7 freshmen in that defensive unit. It was a ridiculous number that how many freshmen played. That was the difference. This year, when I know people are saying, oh man, Kam Robinson's going to be hurt. Yes, but you have James Jackson, you have Trey McDonald, you have Maddox Marcellus coming in, you have Landon Danley that a lot of people are really hyped up about. You have options. That is a difference.
It's so awesome to hear, because it really was hard to watch at the end of last season. I mean, Calandria, he was just running for his life. Unfortunately, he ran out of bounds and didn't throw the ball away. But so kind of getting to the quarterbacks. How did they look on Saturday in the scrimmage?
Well, yeah, I wasn't at the scrimmage, but they kicked us out after the first play. So the first pass was really great. I mean, I loved how Chandler Morris got that pass. I mean, it was great and up the middle to the slot, so it was perfect. But from hearing people talk about Chandler Morris, I've been very impressed with how much he has grown from the spring to now in the summer. They always say that the most important part of a quarterback's development is between spring and the fall. And he used that time wisely to get to know his team, to get to know the playbook. I mean, Chandler Morris has been pretty open that he wasn't as comfortable with the offense in the spring than he would have liked. And he was really used this in between period to really work on that. And if you talk to the team, they've all said the same thing, that they really have been impressed with Chandler and how he's done and leading the offense. And they've all said that the offense looks more explosive. I've asked almost every member of that offense that we've had available, ask how they can identify this team. And they've all said this is an explosive offense, because I think that's something that we've always struggled to figure out, is what the identity of the Virginia offense is. So that's what they say. They're explosive. They have different options. I mean, they have different wide receivers they can go after. I mean, when you look at, Cam Ross, what he has been able to do, he's a very speedy guy. You see Jaden Thomas and what he's been able to do at Notre Dame. Trell Harris healthy. We saw the potential that he did at stretching the field. And then you add Dakota Tweedy, Sage Ennis is also healthy. You have potential, especially when you had Jamari Taylor and Xavier Brown, 2 different running backs and with 2 different strengths. Mm-hmm. So I think you can see how that can all help with Chandler Morris. And I know one of the big things that fans said to me was that Chandler Morris is obviously the height issue, right? That's something that everyone kept telling me. Well, he's just Anthony Calandria. It's like, yeah, but take everything that you saw about Anthony Calandria and add a few years of experience, the stuff that you sometimes were like, okay, the reason why Anthony Calandria didn't go out for a sack is because he's still a very young quarterback and he should have not been playing at that moment. He played because of all those stuff that going on with injuries. And then after all that, he never got the development stage of it, right? He kind of was tossed in the fire. So you got a guy who knows football, who's no experience, he was the guy who won the quarterback battle the year that TCU went to the national championship. He got hurt, but he won that quarterback battle. That has to say something, right? So right now it's just talking to people around the program. They are excited about how this offense looks and the potential of it. So I haven't seen it, but just hearing people, there's definitely more positivity around it.
Right. Is there anybody that you would have heard from coaches that maybe is unexpectedly kind of moving up the depth chart, or vice versa, maybe playing their way off the field a little bit?
Josiah Persinger is a freshman corner. I think with all the new secondary options that they picked up in the portal, I wouldn't have guessed that he and safety Corey Costner would probably be the two freshmen that would see the field early, just because you saw those experienced DBs coming in from the portal. But those two have been two that I've heard a lot about. Obviously, the freshman Josiah Abdullah, you've heard so much about because of what he did in the spring. But Corey Costner did a good spring, but it didn't steal the headlines, right? It was Josiah Abdullah who did. But Corey Costner has continuously been, I've been told he's like, we've got to figure out how to play him, be it special teams or whatnot. But he's a guy that deserves to be on the field. And so is Josiah Persinger. I think Josiah Persinger is certainly one guy that has grabbed people's attention. And honestly, 24/7 Sports, I think, was one of the first recruiting sites to put him up as a 4-star. After he signed to Virginia, he actually became the top ranked player in Virginia's class last year after he signed. So he was very underrated when Virginia found him. It was a kudos to Virginia for finding him and getting him when he was not as ranked as highly, and obviously got ranked high. I think those are the two to watch. I think Landon Danley also got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I know last year the coaches talked a little bit about him, but then because when you looked at the linebacker unit, James Jackson, Kam Robinson, and Trey McDonald coming back, because Trey McDonald had a very good second half of the season last year. He had to step up a lot for Kam Robinson. So a lot of people didn't mention Landon Danley. But because of, again, the injury to Kam Robinson and then Trey McDonald still working, and James Jackson, to be fair, also both of them coming back from recovery from injury from last year, and Trey McDonald missing spring, so still easing in. Landon Danley was able to get more of the reps, so he's another guy who raised the stock and continues to raise the stock. You can see him possibly, because of Kam Robinson's injury, possibly getting more of a coming out and coming more reps. But I think those are the main guys that I think if you had asked anyone coming into the season, you weren't sure where they would fit in kind of the things. But yeah, I think. Yeah, as far as running back, I think running back kind of played out like we thought. I think the only one is Noah Vaughn going into kind of taking most of the third team reps. Because I think Whaley's still struggling a little bit. He's when I've seen him, he's still coming back from injury, so he's still not as consistent in practice. But yeah, no, I think those freshmen have certainly made some noise for themselves, and also Landon Danley.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the team, there's so many new faces on the team. In your opinion, would you say the chemistry is something fans should be concerned about, or you think that's a little overblown?
I mean, it's always a concern because when you got over 50 players coming in at one point, and I think the secondary is where my concern would be, because there's still guys who potentially will be taking a lot more snaps, still not playing yet. Because they're dealing with injury. So that's possibly a concern, because communication in the secondary is obviously a very big thing. You want that person. You don't have Jonas Sanker back there anymore. And you don't have Antonio Clary yet back. That his injury got delayed a little bit, so he's not expected to come as soon as they would have hoped as well. So I think that's one of the main concerns, although they do have talent there. And you've got, like I said, Jordan Robinson, DeMarcus Crosby are probably guys that you can hear more about. But that is probably my concern as far as building chemistry, because they haven't been on the field together. I don't think the O-line, I don't think there has been any issues with chemistry, just speaking to those guys. I mean, a lot of them have been together since the spring. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of good opportunities to kind of go together. And honestly, the age of this team, I think this is one of the oldest teams in college football. I mean, I think I was talking to someone at UVA, and Antonio Clary, and I think it's in between Antonio Clary and Montino Williams, who is turning 18, I think this month, is 7 years. It's a home master's program. Yeah. You can get your PhD. Right. So, I mean, you have older guys there. I mean, you've got guys in the next stage of his life. So, obviously I did a story on Brady Wilson, who did the recruiting transfer process with his wife. I mean, you have Chandler. I think Chandler Morris is I think he's engaged or a long-term relationship, almost engaged. You have Sage Ennis, who has the fiance. I mean, you have so many guys. Emmanuel Carnley, who's a father. I mean, these are guys who are in another stage of life, who have a different maturity. Those are things that are coming into your locker room. So when you're building chemistry, that's totally different when you have those type of personalities. So I'm not too concerned of that, because it's not like you're having like 50 new 18-year-olds in there.
Right.
You're having men who have been around. So I'm not as concerned. And also because, and I'm actually doing a story that's coming out on 24/7 this week on Wahoos 24/7, is about the nucleus that Virginia returns. If you look at this roster of Tony Elliott's first class with Xavier Brown, Dakota Tweedy, Mikhail Boley, Will Bettridge, Trey McDonald, Stevie Bracey, all those guys who stuck with their commitment after Bronco Mendenhall left, even without knowing what was going on, even without visiting under the new staff, didn't even know who the assistants were, stuck with Virginia and stuck with Virginia after the shooting, stuck with Virginia after things were tough, and are now kind of taking over this team. They're the nucleus. These are the guys who bought into the culture. These are the foundation that the Virginia staff has also said. They're still there, and they're going to be big pieces this year. Mikhail Boley is your starting left tackle. You have Xavier Brown, who's competing for the number one running back. And honestly, I would say him and Jamari Taylor are like the one or two punch. So I think those two are going to be good. Dakota Tweedy's him and Sage Ennis are your guys at tight end. Will Bettridge obviously is your starting place kicker. Stevie Bracey is one of their best specialists too, as well. He's doing really good on special teams for them, and then being on the rotation for a linebacker. So I mean, all these guys are there, and they're going to play big roles for them. So that's why I'm also not too concerned about chemistry, because you have those guys. Then you have like Antonio Cavalier, who's been at UVA forever. Then you have all these other guys who that are old, like Jameer Carter, who chose to come back another year. So, and then Jason Hammond, who also is one of those guys that developed in the Virginia. You have Anthony Britton, who believes in the program. So those are the guys that I feel like have kind of set the foundation that will help build the chemistry for all the new faces. And some of them have big roles this year. So that's why I'm not as concerned about chemistry.
Yeah. So I know Chandler Morris, he likes to spread the ball around. And I know there's only so many targets they can go around. Seems like it's a very deep wide receiver room. Who would you say maybe looks the best early in that wide receiver room?
I mean, Kam Ross obviously is the guy that keeps stealing all the kind of the praise from everybody. He will tell you he's the fastest guy on the team. I mean, he's not a shy individual.
Right.
He's also going to be a returner for them, a good specialist for them. So that's something that Keith Gaither was saying, that they need to improve on their blocking and the return, but they've been really trying to improve on their return game. And he's excited to see what Kam Ross can do. And then that slot position, I mean, you have him, Josiah Abdullah, Sadarian, and Harrison, all there competing for that role. And you can even say Jaden Thomas can go there too if you wanted to. But because they're so loaded at slot, I mean, they even started moving Cam Courtney outside as well. Because I still remember Keith Gaither told me this last year, just before his true freshman season, that they just need to give Cam Courtney the ball. He's just a good athlete. Just give the kid the ball. And this year, unfortunately, had a hamstring injury. Right. I know, injury, but it's not something that's going to take him out for a couple. It's not going to take him. He was already running during the Saturday injury scrimmage, so it's not like it's something that's going to take him out for weeks here. But he's a guy that they're looking to see play outside. Trail Harris has been. I mean, last year I think I did a podcast with Preston, and I said he was my breakout star. That was who I picked last year. And you saw the potential that he had prior to his injury. And I still think he's going to be my breakout again this year. Him and Kam Ross will probably be the two that I think could be the most productive for Virginia. I think they are the two that I would say would probably be the two that would compete for the most receiving yards. When you look at it, obviously Jamel Edrin is also a guy that can be really good. He's also had it looked like some summer session class scheduling sometimes when I looked at he missed one practice or some practice because the summer sessions still were going on the first week and a half of practice. But I mean, his frame, I mean, that guy is big. I mean, you can see the potential that there's there too. So Virginia has a lot of options, and I think it's going to be fun for them to kind of move the ball around. And then you add Dakota Tweedy, who's a very capable pass catcher in his own right. So it's going to be interesting to see how they tie those wide receivers and also use Xavier Brown, because as we found out last year, give Xavier Brown the ball somehow and he makes things happen. So the good thing for Virginia is, like I said, they have options, where last year when Trail Harris went down, who was their option to stretch the field?
Right.
There was no one else.
Nobody.
Yeah. So you have we talked about a little bit about the injuries with Monroe Mills and McKeelan Thomas. For people that maybe don't understand how the NIL era and things like that work, like there's no tying them to the program for beyond this year, right? Or any of the guys that have come in on NIL deals, they get hurt. Can you talk about how those kind of deals, when an injury occurs, how that affects the program?
Yeah, I mean, they're still on their NIL contract. I mean, an injury, it would be really bad for the program if you just said, hey, you're hurt, you're not going to get your NIL deal. So they're still tied to the program. They can choose to come back if not, choose to come back if they want. I mean, obviously, McKeelan can still potentially play. I mean, they don't expect him to be an ending injury. They hope to get him back. I think it was 3 months is what Tony Elliott said. So if it's 3 months, it's probably like October, November. So then it's kind of just a judgment call of if you want him back or save his medical red shirt, possibly get him back another year. Monroe Mills will have a decision to make at the end of the year if he wants to stick with Virginia for his last year of eligibility. So, and I mean, that is honestly everybody. I know people are focused on the NIL, but I mean, that's the scholarship athletes too. I mean, it's always been a 1-year contract. Scholarships are never a 4-year contract or 3-year contract, what have you. It's always been a 1-year contract both ways, where the coaches can decide yearly to year. So yeah, for guys that are injured, that come in the portal, they're still getting their NIL deal. They're still getting their rev share. They just have to decide, and whenever the portal opens, that they're going to stick. And then Virginia's going to see how that works out for the roster spot too. I mean, it's a business now. They're going to see if it's both ways. The player's going to decide and the coaching staff will decide. So this is how college football is. It's kind of like, again, it's like NFL free agency. So you're just going to, you're building a roster, and at this time you kind of don't have feelings anymore. You just kind of have to kind of go with the flow. I mean, kudos to the staff at Virginia. I mean, they kept kids on board, let them graduate, get their degree. But this new era, that's uncommon.
Right. So kind of shifting gears a little bit to the recruiting side. The class for 26 right now is a little bit small. I think, maybe 13 or so commitments. But we did get a big one with Bull Richardson. I think that was big, in-state player. Mm-hmm. Any chance we steal the big O lineman from Richmond, and then any other 26ers you want to talk about that could still land in Charlottesville?
I don't think Darius Gray, he's the offensive lineman from Richmond, will be committing to Virginia. I think he's about to announce at some point in the next 2 weeks. I think his decision. He was meant to decide at the end of the season, and I thought that was interesting if he did hold off until the end of the season, because you never know after a season of college football is played how things will shake out. We always know that it's crazy around November, December with coaching carousels and all that. But because he decided in the summer, Virginia's not going to get their shot this time around. I think possibly I think he's leaning towards South Carolina. So it depends on what goes on in the season with them. Who knows? Some people can argue that their staff is on the hot seat there at South Carolina if they don't perform. So I don't think Virginia is in it right now, but I think Virginia has done enough to keep Darius Gray interested in the program. At least he took an official visit to UVA. I know a lot of fans sometimes think, oh, he's never come to Virginia. Why are they going to even have an official visit? Well, this is the portal world, right? I mean, and you don't know what happens in a year or two. You always want to have those established connections early. So I don't think Darius Gray is coming to Virginia now, but you never know. If Virginia has a really good season and they can go back and recruit him through the season. I mean, he hasn't signed. That means you can still recruit him. Right now, things are a little quiet in the 2026 class. I imagine they're going to pick up a little bit more. Virginia is one of those programs that likes to see guys in person. So there are a couple guys that they're evaluating that they've had during camp, and they would like to evaluate a little bit more. So they will go to their high school games on Friday night, and then you'll probably see more offers. Like, they do need to get a defensive end. That is definitely a position where they haven't been able to secure a position. And I think they'll probably want to sign another defensive tackle. So I know Sterling Edwards is one guy they brought into an official visit. He has not picked up an offer yet. So I think Virginia is still evaluating him and how he starts off the season, and then possibly seeing how other D linemen also start off the season. And if that's the case, then if they offer, I would expect a quick decision from him. I think he's one that I've said on the board. As soon as Virginia pulls that trigger on that offer, then he's going to, I think, pick Virginia. So that's one guy to look over. They did offer that quarterback out of Glenvar in Salem, Virginia, Brody Duyot. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. So they offered him as a quarterback and punter. He actually punted for them in their camp. He's currently committed to Charlotte. He's told me he was about to make a decision before this new season starts. He's going to take a couple weeks before deciding if he was going to reopen his recruitment. So that's someone to watch out for. But right now it's kind of quiet. I mean, they're focused on the season. And this time of year, you're always kind of focused on the season. You're not like, guys aren't visiting. They're focused on getting their roster out. But you're going to probably see a couple more offers here towards the end of August and probably September.
Okay.
So, speaking of the class being a little bit small, do you think Coach Elliott's maybe his job security could potentially be holding back some recruits, or you think it's more of Virginia being a little slower to, wanting to watch these guys play and actually slower to giving an offer?
I mean, I'm not going to lie and say negative recruiting doesn't happen. I mean, it is definitely a factor. I mean, they've been negative recruiting this Virginia staff the last probably year. I think a lot of teams have used that to their advantage, and the only way you win those is if you win on the field. Mm-hmm. If Virginia wins on the field this year, things change drastically for them. I mean, when you cover recruiting, you see the difference in how some of the in-state programs, especially in the Richmond area, have really changed towards Virginia. I mean, you can look at the last 2 years and what kudos to Keith Gaither and Kevin Downing. Those are your two area recruiters in Richmond. Those two have done a fantastic job of starting up relationships there. And you've noticed the changes. And I mean, last year, you just look at how many Richmond guys they were able to pick up. Isaiah Robinson, Dylan Nugent-Short, Montino Williams. Those guys were able to sign. And this year, you already got two Verina guys, and Jayshon Richardson and Damari Carter. And those are important recruits to get. And so they've done inroads there. They still need to do inroads in a lot of some of the other parts of Virginia, but that has been big. But they are being negative recruited because they need to win. If you don't win, these kids want to see that this program is moving in the right direction. They also want to see guys develop. Having Kam Robinson perform well is good for them because that's an in-state guy, right? Mm-hmm. So having him perform, seeing Jason Hammond, seeing Anthony Britton, another in-state guy, get better every year will certainly help them as well. So if you show development in those in-state guys like Cam Courtney, those all will help Virginia in the long run because you can go back and say, I think Tony Elliott even mentioned, the recruits recruit better than a coach would because you can show what they're doing. And I think that's something that they still need. They still need to show that development. This is the year they can show it. I mean, this is their roster. So they kind of don't have an excuse there. I think they're also a little more, I think with the portal, you're a little bit more hesitant to go all in on high school guys. Yeah. You're a little more hesitant to build your roster that way. And you're also dealing with a 105-man roster now. I mean, I know usually you talk about scholarship guys and preferred walk-on guys. You don't have that anymore. You just have a roster spot. Everyone's going to have a rev share. So guys that I often would think would be a preferred walk-on role are getting a scholarship now. So it's very different now. So when you see these guys, they're more meticulous in their offers. They have to see exactly where they fit in the roster. And then you're going to see, because some of the stuff has been grandfathered in this year because of the reaching the 105. So next year, you're going to see things start cutting down. So that's also why these classes are a little bit smaller too, because you're because no one knows. I mean, I feel like I get asked a lot how many of this position they're going to get, how many of this position they're going to get. No one knows because you don't know what's going to happen in December. Like, who you think that a guy is not leaving and you have a one-on-one meeting with a player. I even talked to a parent of a player saying, oh, no, he's not leaving. And then about 2 days later, they're entering the portal. I mean, it's that quickly now. So, but I think I know Virginia is definitely needing a few more positions. I mentioned defensive end is definitely one that they want to get. So the class is definitely going to get bigger. I would say, I think they're at 13. Yeah, they're at 13 right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they reach 16 or 17 high schoolers, but it's definitely something that I think because of the portal, it's not as frantic when it comes to this.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of Coach Elliott, what will it take for him to be back as the head coach in 2026, in your opinion?
Obviously they need to bowl. I think he needs to show, I mean, the program needs to show that they're moving in the right direction. I mean, this year, everyone is bought in. I mean, they had their resources are much better. I mean, I did a story about the kitchen, the being fully staffed with the chefs coming in. I mean, I think a lot of people, I had a lot of questions from my message board subscribers asking, like, isn't that normal? I was like, well, I mean, other programs had it. Virginia did not have it. This is something new. I mean, they had a facility. They had a kitchen, but they didn't have chefs for the kitchen. So players were still buying their own food or having catered in, which is hard to help a team or help a player develop their own nutrition plan. It's those minor details that they did not have before. So you can say there's no more excuses, right? These are things that are now helping the team. Now, it just started in the spring, and I've had a couple of players say, like, I've noticed a difference because I'm actually eating the right composite of carbs and protein and knowing exactly when to eat those, either before a practice or after a practice. Though they've got millions of dollars paid for that donation to get that done. They have the facilities now, so now they're not behind in facilities. They had that big donation in the portal. So all those things, I mean, there's buy-in. I mean, I'm going to give something that fans will be excited about. Admissions worked with Virginia football. Wow. I mean, that is something that I know how many people have said, like, it's always admissions. Admissions worked. I mean, you had Jaden Thomas and Mitchell Milton coming in after what was expected to be the deadline because they were playing the national championship. I mean, did you expect that like 2 or 3 years ago? No. People have bought in. People are saying, like, you know what? We want to make this football program good. What do you need? So now that's what's going on at Virginia. They're finally playing the game. Now, obviously, the game is changing as we speak. So they might have to keep up with this and kind of move forward and try not to get behind again. But that's why there's a little bit more pressure this year because there's been more bought in. I think Virginia does need to make a bowl game. I think a lot of people would be still disappointed at a 6-win season. The only thing I always hedge is no one knows what this ACC looks like. Mm-hmm. I think what they were voted 14th in the ACC poll. Yep. I voted them at 8th in the ACC poll in my preseason check. I thought that they were good enough to be in the middle of the pack, but again, I don't know. If you look at the ACC, does anyone know what Syracuse is going to look like, or Wake Forest? They're the first year and a new coach. I mean, to go through the ACC, I mean, Cal, Stanford. I just don't see how anyone can know if this is the easiest schedule, because they argue either UNC or VA is the easiest schedule. Do you really know until you've actually played the game? So right now, I think Virginia is in a good spot to have 7 wins, 7 or 8 wins, if you look at the strength of conference schedule. But at the end of the day, it's like Florida State. I mean, how good is Florida State going to be? I mean, last year, everyone thought that they were going to be great. I mean, are they going to be great this year? I don't know. I mean, I still see Castellanos talking about him being, beating Alabama, and they haven't even played a snap. I mean, yeah. So it's just an interesting world right now that preseason. I think preseason polls are just you can't figure that out. Mm-hmm. So right now, long answer is that bowl game is a must. 6 wins might be enough depending on how the ACC looks and if teams are better than what they are on paper.
So let's just say everything kind of goes perfectly. What is the ceiling? I mean, Lo Davis came on and talked with us, and he said Coach Elliott has everything to get to Charlotte. Do you think that's realistic talk, or is that, I mean, in the realm of possibility, you think even?
I think Virginia does have enough to get to the ACC. Like for this year, I would not bet them going to ACC championship. But I think Virginia as a program, I feel like has always been a program that I feel like could potentially reach that, just because I remember covering them for the first time in 2013. To be fair, the first time I ever saw Virginia live in person, I was a senior at University of Miami, and they beat Virginia at the last game of the Orange Bowl. That was my first time experiencing UVA live.
Game.
Yes, that was my first time experiencing UVA. At that point, I hated UVA. I'm sorry, guys. I was a student reporter for a cable station, and I was in the middle of interviewing, like I had to interview The Rock and all that stuff on the sideline, and I had to do that after the loss. So I was not appreciative of UVA at that time. You kind of were ruining my moment. But I always felt, once I started covering recruiting back in 2013, 2014, that Virginia was just situated in such a good spot, just recruiting wise, because you had such a good area for talent. You had, within a 5-hour radius, you had the Nova area, you had the DMV, you had Maryland with all those private schools. You had private schools up in Connecticut that kind of fit the profile that UVA recruited. You had the guys in New Jersey. You had access to Pennsylvania within like 5-6 hour driving distance. You had Georgia that you can get to. You had North Carolina. I always felt that Virginia had so much talent that they can recruit and families can still watch them, because that's still, like, I know there's a lot of things where before you didn't have Huddle. So people would send in DVDs or VHSs or what have you. So recruiting always felt like you needed to stay in state. That's not the case anymore. That's why kids don't stay in state as much anymore, because you can send your tape by a link rather than VHS or going there in person. But at the same time, you hear stories still from families that kids are just homesick from being too far from home. So I always felt that Virginia, if you just look at geographically, they could do so much. And then you looked at how much the boost, like just look at the boosters of Virginia, the endowments, and just the money potential from the alumni base that UVA had. If they bought into football, I felt like UVA could always had the potential. I mean, I still remember when I left UVA and I went to go cover University of Florida. My first day covering UVA was when Mike London was touring the new indoor practice facility. And then my first week or two at University of Florida, and this was about 2.5, 3 years later, was when Jim McElwain was introducing the new indoor practice facility at University of Florida. So back in the mid 2010s, Virginia was leading the arms race in facilities over an SEC program like University of Florida.
Wow.
So back then you were like, oh, UVA, has the potential. I mean, Scott's like, it was ahead of the game, and then things kind of sputtered. So I kind of agree with Lo Davis that if everything goes like just like this offseason, where you had admissions working, they're like fudging grades or anything. They're just helping, saying like, this is what you need to get, or at least just helping guys that are playing national title that you're transferring in, get them into the school. So yes, there might be a couple days late, but they qualify. I mean, they're coming from Notre Dame and Ohio State. I mean, Notre Dame is a great academic institution. So is Ohio State. So those are the things that I think can make Virginia a great program, because you have bought in from different areas, because you can't just have the program buy in. You need all the other pieces to help buy in. You also need the students to buy in. You need that environment. So that's the next piece for them, is trying to get the fan engagement and student engagement to try to get to that next level. But I think everything's there, and it's always been there. I mean, I still remember there was one Power 4 coach that I used to talk to, and he always thought that Virginia had the potential to win the ACC, not consistently, because he says it's one of those what he told me was that Virginia is a program that you can develop talent, and every 3 or so years you can possibly compete for the ACC title just because of the way the cycle goes and development of players. He said they should always be at a bowl game and they should always compete every so years. That's what he thought of Virginia. And this was back in about 2015, 2016. And I still think that is possible. Obviously, it's a little harder now with the arms race of NIL. And I think what Cav Futures with Flo Davis and all of them are doing is trying to figure out how to do the marketing angle and trying to get more sponsors and third-party things. So that's the way to compete and try to get a bigger base, because you are from Charlottesville, so you don't have such a big marketable base like in Miami or New York or LA. Obviously, LA is going to be a big market, but you still have a lot of stuff that's going for you. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I think they can compete. I think there's still stuff they need to do in order to reach that potential.
Last question. Do you have a final record prediction?
Oh my gosh. I knew it was coming too. So I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a bowl game. I vacillate between 6 to 8 games. I could see this team go 8, but I could also see this team going 6. And I think there's a couple games that I'm not sure about because of the other team. So hold on, I need to bring up. I'm a visual person, so I'm going to look at the schedule. This is my kid's first day of school today, so I'm.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, so I'm
facing that on Monday.
Oh, okay. No, there was obviously my little girl, she's 5, starting kindergarten, so she needed her hair perfect. So I had to go on Pinterest to make sure I did her hair correct.
Oh boy.
So yeah. So when you look at the schedule, there's a potential to be 4-0 going into that Florida State game. I don't buy NC State. I think there's a lot of questions at NC State. The only thing that I'm cautious about is on the road.
Yeah.
But I mean, out of the first games, they could potentially be 4-0, right? And then out of the first, then Florida State and Louisville. Florida State, I don't know. I mean, I think Florida State or at North Carolina is one of those games I think Virginia is going to steal one. And even at North Carolina, I don't even know what North Carolina is going to do, if that would even constitute as stealing one, because I don't know if UNC is going to be that good. I can see them before the UNC game being maybe 5-2. Let's just say 5-2 if they lose to North Carolina and Florida State, and then they face at Cal and Wake Forest. So, I mean, I could see them winning 7 games. So I would probably average it out and say 7. Just because if it wasn't for the fact that at Cal, you're dealing with jet lag and all the other stuff that comes in traveling. But I think that the schedule is lined up pretty well. Again, you don't know about some of these teams, but Coast Carolina I'm predicting like obviously a win. NC State, I could see them winning. William Mary I think obviously is a win. Stanford, I think is going to be a win. Florida State, I mean, again, I could see them stealing Florida State or North Carolina. Louisville at Louisville, they've been close the last few years, but let's just say it's on the road. So Louisville takes that. Washington State, they should win. At Cal, I put the edge to Virginia. Wake Forest, I put the edge to Virginia. At Duke is an interesting one. I actually like Duke this year, so I would give the edge to Duke. And then Virginia Tech, I just give up. I can't. I just give up.
Yeah.
Here's a prediction. One of those 2 coaches is not going to be coaching the team next year after that Virginia Tech-Virginia game.
I think Brent Pry is a little more hotter on this seat than Tony Elliott.
You
know, like I've been on this beat. I've been back on this beat for a few years now. And I mean, I've chosen Virginia over Virginia Tech. That first year I had Bronco Mendenhall. And then, I mean, they had obviously that throw to the lineman. And then I thought possibly, you know, I thought Tony Elliott could at least got 1 win over Virginia Tech with the team. So I just give up. I think I think for my own health and sanity, I'm not going to make any predictions for that. Game.
Smart.
But at least it's after a bye week this year.
Yeah. Right. Love that.
So, I mean, I hate to put it out there, but Tony Elliott and his staff are undefeated coming out of a bye week.
That's right. Pitt last year.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at his schedule, it screams 7-8 wins, right?
I mean, I see what Lowe Davis when he says, ACC, because if only a couple of those things go, your way, like the Louisville game, we've been close, like you said, and Florida State, you don't know, Bill Belichick at Carolina, I think that could just completely blow up. I mean, then you're sitting there like, well, what are we gonna? You could be 8-9 wins, facing Duke and Virginia Tech for. Things that like Indiana level type of games from last year.
Yeah, I think that's why, I think a couple of our guys in the national podcast on 24/7, I think even Bud Elliott and those guys at Cover 3 have kind of put Virginia as a kind of one of those dark horses coming into the season because of just how favorable the schedule is. The kind of caveat for Virginia is how are the new pieces coming in? And I mean, obviously health, but you're thinking, okay, you got playable depth. So as long as you're healthy in the key areas, then you should be fine.
Right.
So I hate to say it's a hopeful season for Virginia. But this is a very good schedule for UVA with all the new pieces and the pieces they were able to get in the portal.
I told my kids if Virginia can win 7 or more, it's going to be a good Christmas. But if they get under 7, we might not have Christmas this year. If you get my drift.
Yeah. Yes.
We really appreciate your time. Can you tell folks you have so much knowledge and so much information where they can find your information at?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm at wahoos247.com and I'll be at practice again on Wednesday. And then we have one more training camp practice on Monday. So we'll have sights and sounds. So plenty of video. We'll have insiders from there. And then we have a couple features coming up too. Like I said, we're doing a story and that first recruiting class of Tony Elliott, that nucleus on there that I don't think is getting a lot of attention this fall camp. I feel like a lot of attention's on the transfers and there's a lot of guys that are returning that are big pieces for this team. So we're going to focus on some of those guys returning.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time tonight and best of luck this season. Hopefully we'll run into you at Scott Stadium.
For sure.
Have a great evening.
All right. Have a great night.
Thanks again to Jacquie Franculli for joining us tonight. I mean, man, just a wealth of knowledge. She just spews those names out like it's nothing, knows every little thing about them. I have to recommend the Wahoos 24/7, and I think they have a deal right now. I think it's 50% off of the VIP, and you get some good information on there as well, as we've been subscribed to that one. But definitely a treat to talk to for sure.
Yeah, always love hearing from Jacquie. She's one of my favorite people that we have on. And, one thing about Jacquie, she's so great. And then last year, she doesn't have to help out. We're nobodies, as we like to say. And, I sent her a message before the first game that I had a media pass. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to do. Never had this happen before. And she was she sent me her phone number, talk to her. She answered questions for me. This is what you do. This is where you go. She's just a great person. And like you say, wealth of knowledge. And, just love having her on the show.
Yeah, for sure. And, we have coming up later in the week, we also getting to talk to another one with a ton of knowledge who's been covering Virginia sports for I don't think it's
a really long time.
Not as long as we've been alive, but
I don't know, Jeff. It might be
45 years. I'm 46.
It might be. We'll have to ask.
Jerry Radcliffe's going to join the show to talk about Virginia football, and it's almost time. August 30th, we got what do we got? 18 days from this recording date, 17 from when you're viewing this to Coastal Carolina. So exciting stuff.
Yep.
Before we log out, make sure you visit thecavalierconnection.com for articles. Some of these episodes are listed on there as well. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure to give us a follow, right? Subscribe
on YouTube. Yep.
Subscribe for us on YouTube. Be helpful. And also on the cavalierconnection.com. If you can help us out, go shop, get yourself something good from Mensers. Click on the link there and support Mensers. And you're also supporting us here at the Cavalier Connection. That's going to wrap us up for tonight. Go Hoos.
Go Hoos.